Hey everyone, welcome back to the Virtual Sales Summit. I got Damian Thompson here. Very excited to talk to you today on transitioning sales from a founder doing all the sales to a salesperson, sales team, salespeople. Damian, welcome.
Hey man, good to see you again, Sujin.
Likewise, always a pleasure to talk to you. For those of people who don't know you, you mind just giving a quick background on what you do, your sales experience, whatnot?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Salesability, a sales training company, and the co-founder of LeadFuse, a lead generation company. I've been in sales since I used to say I was in sales since I was 13, selling newspapers door to door. For all these kids who don't know what that actually was, that was a real thing at one point. But actually, I started my sales career selling D&D maps in 5th grade. So I've been that kind of, stereotypical hustler most of my life. But it wasn't until I got into enterprise sales in the 90s in software that I learned real sales. I learned process, and I learned systems, and I learned, how to take this seriously. And where sales went from what it is for most people, something they fall into or something they're forced to do if they're a founder, not what they want to do, into, for me, it's a calling and a passion. I spent 2.5 decades in everything from Fortune 100 companies, building sales teams around the world, to coaching and working with small business owners and entrepreneurs, and understanding the nuances. And when people say, all sales is sales, they're wrong, right? So there are all kinds of nuances. This is something that I see as, I'm a professional. This is my profession. I take this as seriously as anybody else would. I read, I study, I learn. I never know all of it. And I love talking about it, and I love helping people, if not become as passionate about it as me, at least understand it's more than just a necessary evil. It's actually can be a very magical process. It can be all types can be successful in sales. Right? I've seen engineers crush it because they focus on the process part. They focus on the repetitive, the kind of building systems and doing that. I've seen people that is great relationship people, outgoing artists, do really well because they focus on that. Where you get into problems is when you try to be something you're not, or to figure out what that is, or misunderstand exactly what sales is. Sales is about solving people's problems that are big enough and more important enough that they'll give you money. That's what sales is, right? And so you have to figure a lot of things out to get there, and that's to me the fun part. It's the puzzle. It's the problem-solving part, the human reaction. It's the most important skill an entrepreneur, CEO, business owner can learn. Unfortunately, it's the one they're least likely to learn, either because they're afraid of it, they have a misunderstanding of what it is, and unfortunately, the sales profession is full of a lot of really bad salespeople. And so, if there's many bad doctors that are bad salespeople, it would be very few of us left on the planet. And so that gives the whole industry a bad feeling. But one of the things I've loved in my career is being able to see that sales in the 21st century is awesome. You don't have to be. You used to have to know everything. You were a walking encyclopedia. You were a product man. You were the internet of your product 20 years ago, right? Now that's not about that at all. Now it's about honesty. It's about helping people understand if you're a good fit or not. I talk about people, you should always kind of, if you feel something, say it. If you don't understand why they said something, ask, right? You can be as open and honest. It's literally the most honest profession in most businesses now. It's about trying to figure out what fits and what works. And I love kind of preaching the message, getting the gospel out there. So happy to talk today.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. And you're one of the most passionate people about sales, or just in general, ever I've met. I think we had a dinner a few years ago, and it was like a very ordinary topic you were saying, but you're just so much enthusiasm that I was like, my level of energy just went up. Even though it wasn't something I specifically actually cared about, I could see that you cared so deeply, and you just sucked me in. So that's definitely one of the reasons I wanted to, have you in some of the stuff we've done in the earlier days. But that really just to get into the topic. So founders are doing sales, right? A lot of folks end up being in that role. They're early stage startup, a new business. They're the face. I did sales at my agency for the first few years, and the biggest thing I regret was not handing it off to a sales professional early enough, because I could have closed way more deals for a higher amount, better contracts, all that stuff. So let's say you're doing that, but now you're ready to hand it off. I guess what happens?
Let's take a step back. I'm going to jump in. Let's take a step back, because what you just said is a rare case, actually, because here's what I would call it, the reluctant salesperson. So you didn't want to be in sales. You had, most founders don't want to be in sales. They are really good at a technical or a creative skill, or they figure out a problem they want to solve. They're product people. They're like, that's what their passion is. That's what they see themselves as. That's how they view themselves. And what happens is they're forced into selling because they can't afford anybody else to do it. And so they're reluctant at it. And so through brute force, right, through sheer power of will, they get good enough, right, through repetition, through just kind of reading bad advice on the internet, and get good enough, right, to kind of get to an okay level. Generally what happens then is that's the first mistake they make, is they hand off sales too early. Because what's happened is they don't understand that the reason why they had some success was that they're passionate about the product. They're passionate about the market they serve. They're passionate about the way they serve it. They understand that at a deeper level than any sales rep's ever going to. They also have, when you were the head of your agency, nobody in that agency was going to have the gravitas you had, right? Even if you weren't a great sales professional, you were the boss. People like talking to the boss, right? And so what happens is they don't have the processes in place. They don't have the systems in place. They don't have a clear understanding of who they serve and how they serve them. And they rush out and they make the $100,000 mistake of hiring a salesperson way too early. And then you never know what the problem is because you haven't actually put this process together. But I know you well enough that you probably had some tight systems and some processes and you knew what was working, what didn't work. And so, you were probably ready, but that's actually pretty rare. And so the biggest mistake most people make is they do it too quickly. So the first thing you have to do is you have to do it first. You have to do it. You should look at this as, what do you call it? Like an internship almost in your own business, right? You've got to figure out how to make sales work. Lead gen, same thing, right? You've got to figure out, you're still doing cold email. You don't have to do cold email, and you got a team to do that, but you have to kind of see what works and have your finger on it and build that process yourself. So they think they're going to go find this unicorn, this sales rep who's going to come in and, hey, this guy was a sales manager at Salesforce. He's going to come in and he's going to build my sales system for me. If he could build a sales system, he wouldn't be working for you. He'd be building his own sales system, right? They are cogs in a wheel, right? And so if you get them on and don't have clear objectives for them, don't have a clear process for them to follow, and you can have it 80% done. Like you want them to tweak it. You want them to be, because you want to hire sales reps that are better than you, right? But like you can't just be like, hey, go figure it out. And that's what I see most founders do, early stage founders and entrepreneurs do, is they kind of say, hey, they're trying to offload a problem. Hey, I hate selling. I don't want to sell. So this is the first thing I try to get rid of. And it's one of the most expensive mistakes I make.
Absolutely. I totally get that. Yeah. I mean, so when do you know you should hand this off?
So when you have a system that is working, right? When you have so a couple things. I'm gonna slam Aaron Ross, who I think is a really good human being. I like him a lot, but he's done a damage to the selling profession over the last 10 years. Predictable revenue is a myth. It is a story of a very special company at a very special time that had resources and access that none of us have. Salesforce was literally the first unicorn. They were so unique, of course people were willing to do that. They also raised $200 million if companies don't do. So the idea of like getting really, really narrow in speciality in sales, like BDRs and SDRs and AEs and customer success and all the rest of it, has become this now. Sales 2.0 is the standard that people do. Like people rush that way too early and they think they've got to do it. If you're funded, cool, you can throw money in a problem, but most of us aren't, right? And so, that's not the way to do it. So what you have to do is you have to figure those processes out yourself. And then instead of trying to get rid of those individual processes, what you do is you figure out, okay, what does my business actually look like? There's an old cliche in selling. What's old is new again right now. Account-based marketing, account-based selling, it's just enterprise sales. It's literally just a new title. It's the exact same thing we've always done. But the actual real kind of change is, it hasn't changed, is people are generally hunters or farmers. Like when you're a sales rep or even a person, like you're generally better at one or the other. You're either you like to solve problems with people and be customer service and friendly and kind of have a long-term relationship, or you like the hunt. You like going out there and winning deals and moving on to the next one. And generally, even if you're really good, you'll get okay at the other one, but you have a natural tendency. So if you're the founder, figure out what that tendency is. Do you like the hunting more, or do you like the actual kind of the farming more? Then what you want to do is you want to get the other side of the business up. So don't think of it as I need a BDR, I need an account exec, I need this, and I need that. Instead, think of it as I need someone to acquire customers, and I need someone to keep those customers and have them pay us more money, which is literally how sales has worked in corporate for a long time, right? You had BDRs or business development managers, BDMs and account managers. And it works because that's a good model that works for most businesses. And almost every business I see would be better served doing that. And so you figure the process out, figure out what part you are better at, and keep that part, and then give the other part to someone else. So generally what that'll be will be like the hunter is someone who's going to do some lead gen and win deals. The idea that a salesperson who is going to like do the demos or walk through the proposal process or kind of do all that work, that person can't also do lead gen is a fallacy. That is just laziness. That is this Silicon Valley mentality of cogs in a system. Like that is just not true. You actually should be the best at it, because these are relationships you need to build to go win. You need to research your customers before you go to that first sales call, the rest of it. So generally what I'm seeing is that's the hunting role, and the account manager role is that handoff. Now, whether you call them customer success or whatever you call them, that's fine. Probably as a CEO, you should probably keep the hunting role, right, and give the account management role off to someone else, just because that's generally more time intensive. And also you're going to have more success in hunting because, again, you're the boss. It's your vision. It's your company. So you got to get the system working first to some level of success, right? So it's some level repeatable. You're not just relying on referrals. You're not just relying on, you went to Dreamforce and got 100 people, right? But actually have some sort of lead generation system and some sort of sales process to close those customers. And once you've done that, then you already start thinking about it. Here's the challenge. When you're ready to hire your first salesperson, you got to hire two. And this is advice that I've been out for a long time, and I hear a lot now. It's not just a cliche. You need to hire two sales reps. If you only hire one sales rep and that person comes on board, unless your process is 100% dialed in, which is not going to be, but if you only hire one, if they fail, when they fail, you're not going to know if it's them or you or the market or the process, and you're going to naturally blame them. But you're not going to really know. If you have two sales reps, not just you get more activity, but more importantly, if one of them is successful and the other one isn't, well, then you got a person problem. You got an HR issue, right? You got someone who's not putting the work in. So that's it. So if you can't afford to hire two people, you're probably not ready.
So what's the benefit of hiring two salespeople?
Okay, so the idea is it's you're essentially you're sanity testing, you're stress testing the business a little bit. So you have a sales process that you've worked on yourself. And again, you can be sloppy as the founder because you've got all this product knowledge, all this domain knowledge, all these things that you might not even know you have. And so you hire someone on, you think they've got enough to be successful. This one person goes out in the world and they don't deliver the result you want them to deliver. Human nature is you're going to blame them. You're going to say, hey, they're not a good salesperson, they conned me, that kind of thing. And maybe that's the case. There's a lot of bad salespeople, like I said earlier. But the power of having a second salesperson is if you have two salespeople, the likelihood that both of them, if they both fail, the likelihood that they both fail because of themselves and not because of some other problem is much lower. And of the three outcomes, there can be either they're both successful, one's successful, one's not, or they're both unsuccessful. Two of those outcomes are good. Both successful, obviously good. One successful, one not successful, still good, because now the system actually works and someone actually can sell your product other than you. You just have to replace the bad salesperson. But if both of them fail, it's probably something else. There's a system problem, there's a process problem, a product market fit problem. There's something else that you were able to overcome because of your drive, passion, understanding the market, all the rest of it, gravitas, whatever, that they just can't. And so that's generally why I suggest that. But it's also kind of a litmus test for if you're ready or not. Because one of the big misconceptions is people try to get this off I want to get sales off my plate. I want someone else to do it. The first 90 days, if you hate being a salesperson, you're going to hate being a sales manager even more, because now you're a sales manager. So now you have all the pain, you've got all the problems of sales, and you've lost a lot of the control. So now you've got to do another job you never did before, which is be a sales manager of salespeople. And you actually have to do that job plus your job for the first 3 months. So you actually are doubling your workload, not taking it off. So is it worth it? Can you afford those two people? Can you afford the effort it's going to take? Like, those are the questions you should be asking yourself, whether you're ready or not. Because until then, find other ways to do it. Find tools like Mailshake and contractors or VAs to kind of help you do some of the work. Like, you can find parts of the business, like parts of the actual process that you can outsource, right? And so maybe that's the first thing you should be looking to do before you're ready to actually hire someone. Because also, like, sales reps Those are also like children and dogs. They like order. They might not act like it, but they want order. They want discipline. They want to know what's happening. They want to feel confidence in what's going on, because their job is to go out and essentially be brand ambassadors for you and to take your confidence out to the world. And so when they show up and you don't onboard them correctly and you don't train them correctly and you don't have the sales ops in place the way you should have, like, it's just not, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And that first 30 days you hire someone is the most critical time. That's when they're going to make up their mind whether they're going to be successful or not at your company. And so if you are rushing to hire, you probably rush past that step as well.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I think getting it off your plate versus making it successful is a very, very different thing. One thing I want to talk through is, let's say you do decide you are going through, you're hiring 2 sales rep day one. What's the process? Like, so you've gotten past the hump of contractors and you've scaled as far as you can scale. You've proven sales can be scaled and moved on. What do you do there?
Okay, it's a great question. I'm going to answer it kind of sideways a little bit. So I'm going to talk about the hardest part of hiring salespeople is, for a non-salesperson, is even mediocre salespeople can BS their way through 2 or 3 interviews for the most part, right? Because they probably have a resume better than yours and maybe they got a good big logo on there or whatever. So, what you have to do is, the hardest thing to recruit for, the hardest thing to interview for, is work ethic. Like I said earlier, that's a very important part of the role. So what you want to do is you want to set up their first 30, 60, 90 days to test work ethic, to make sure the activity levels. So I just want to be clear here. I'm actually a hire fast kind of guy. I'm not a 37 signals, wait till it hurts. I'm a hire fast, fire fast kind of guy. Hire fast, give them clear instructions, give them clear outcomes, and if they don't meet it, that's fine, right? So I'm cool with moving quickly. But what you need to do is you need to say, okay, now how do I test them for the things that matter? Because they're not going to deliver revenue for 3 months, right? So if you wait 3 months and then now you wait another 3 months afterwards because you don't know yet, like, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is say, okay, then what is their job that first 3 months? And it's not closing deals, probably, right? Because I don't have like great lead flow or whatever. It's probably, generating new leads, doing whatever those systems are. So you have to define that. You need to map that out. So the absolute crucial thing is, the first week of you hire a sales rep, you need to clear your calendar. You're going back to school. You're going to onboard these reps. You're going to give them more time and attention than you've given your kid in the last year, right? For that first week, you're going to get them, kind of focused. So what I do in the hiring process is, the very last stage of a hiring process in my sales process is I make them create a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I ask them 2 questions. 1, what activities do you need to do in the next 30, 60, 90 days to be successful? 2, what resources, tools do you need from us to accomplish that? And they do that as part of the interview process. It's not just busy work, though. Not just I want to see how they think. That's actually the framework we're going to use in that first week. They're going to show up on Monday. We're going to do some product knowledge. We're going to get the HR form signed out. We're going to get their laptop and all that kind of nonsense done. We're going to do some training around the CRM system, all the rest of it. But really, that week is about them taking that pretty weak 30, 60, 90 day the interview process and turning it into a real action plan. This is what I'm going to accomplish in the first 30 days. This is what I want to accomplish next week, the week after. And that becomes literally the action plan you coach them to during that first 90 days. And look, they're going to make some things wrong and you're going to make some mistakes. But what you want to see is, A, you want to see they're committing to high levels of activity. B, you want to see they're actually delivering those high levels of activity. And then also you want to see that they're actually picking it up, right? Sometimes they'll do the activity, but for whatever reason, they just don't grok it and they just can't get it. But that's easy to see. The harder thing is when you just say, hey, here's your desk, here's your laptop, here's your leads, go get them. You're a sales, you know what you're doing. Right. So like that, you imprint your work culture immediately. And so when you do that first week, that intense week like that, what you're telling them psychologically is, we work hard here, right? We don't have to work 14, 15 hours. We work, a normal hour, but we work hard. This is a job. This is a hard job. We're going to work hard. Sales is a tough gig. Now it's a great gig. People without a college degrees are making $1 million a year, but it's hard. It's a lot of work and it's tough work. And so you have to get that in their minds early, because they'll tell you everything. Let's say how much they love to cold call during the interview process, how much they love lead generation, how they've always done lead gen at every company they've been at, and they'll show up and say, where are my inbound leads? So, you have to kind of get them focused on, and maybe you have only whatever it is, but you've got to get them focused on what are the activities they need to do in that first 30 days. Really, you're going to know in 30 days whether someone's got it or not. Next skill set, you can coach up. Product knowledge, of course, that kind of stuff happens. But it's going to come to, are they prepared? Are they asking good questions? Are they putting in the work? Are they actually, are they making things better? Because that's what should happen. What should happen is they should say, hey, Sujin, why is the CRM form like this? Like we're answering that same question twice. It doesn't make sense. Like that's what you want, right? You want them having that level of engagement. And that's only going to happen when you show them how important the role is to you by kind of dedicating that first week to them.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. That sounds like a tough week, but like if I were going through that process, I would know exactly what that company expects from me. So I think that helps.
That's it. Expectations. So I'm a tough boss. I mean, I'm a nice guy, I'm tough, but I'm super fair because I set very clear expectations and I make sure they agree to those expectations, right? So this is what we expect. This is how we want you to go about it. You have the ability to draw the map how you want to get there, but this is what you have to accomplish at that point in time. If you refuse to do the work we agreed to do, it's never easy to let someone go, but it's easier when there's a clear path and they're not taking it. Right. And so to me, that's what it's about. It's about setting those expectations and showing them that, look, this is the sales function, especially early, is very, very important. Like how many startups, even like raised a couple of rounds of financing, just didn't make it because they didn't have that one deal maker, the guy who went out and signed that huge HP deal or whatever it happened to be, or whatever, whatever. Like they're so crucial. I mean, sales is such an important function. It's literally the revenue life engine. Right? It's how the money comes into the business, right? And so you have to get that well, especially if you're not funded. Cash flow is important. Now you're paying for sales reps. Like, you have to get that right as fast as possible. And the tendency is the exact opposite. The tendency is to go easy that first 30 days. And I say the exact opposite. I say that first 30 days should be boot camp.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm assuming through this, you're teaching the technical elements of the product, the workflow, the CRM, what to do, all that stuff. All right. Now, are there any industries or businesses where, building a sales team from founder to salespeople are particularly harder or more difficult?
So, yes. I mean, the ones that jump out easily are either ones that are like super like old school relationship driven, right? Those are kind of harder, obviously. Also things that are like really deeply technical. I don't mean like a SaaS tool, which everyone can understand easily. I'm like super technical, right? Like really, aerospace engineering, manufacturing equipment or something like that possibly. Mm-hmm. But really it's more about the talent pool. I think it's why one of the things so like remote work, for example, like I was saying before, like, nothing's really changed. Sales reps have been remote working for 20 years. Reps at HP, they had territory reps. Like Symantec, I worked for Symantec, they're based in California. The sales reps weren't. Like you had a territory. Like you were close to your territory. Because those days you jumped on a plane, you went and saw your customers, right? And so they didn't want to fly you that much. So, that ability to do remote, I think, is a very powerful advantage now for a hirer because there are markets that are just really, really difficult. San Francisco, for example. I generally don't hire from San Francisco. I have a bias against it because they are all job hoppers, right? They move every 6 to 9 months. All they want to talk about is stock options and their buddy who just made $1 billion and everything else. Like they're not have their eye. No one's doing careers anymore. Right? No one's doing 20 years of service anywhere. And that's okay. You do the Reid Hoffman thing, the tour of duty. But I can give someone 2 really good years. You come do this role for 2 years, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to be well paid. You're going to be able to take this to something else. Hopefully it's in this company. It's not somewhere else. That's cool. But this idea of chasing the magic, the golden ticket, right? This idea that I got to get lucky. My buddy worked at Instagram for 4 weeks and got all his stock options bought or whatever. And so markets like in New York now, Austin starting to pick up like that a little bit. But when you're seeing where the market is driving the hiring process more than the hiring process driving the market, those are tougher markets. I think those are harder things to do. But again, I would say that even if you're in San Francisco, there's no reason you have to have a sales office in San Francisco. In fact, I would say you probably shouldn't have a sales office in San Francisco unless you need relationships, that kind of thing. Everyone moves to Austin now. Austin's becoming big. There's going to be somewhere else. Idaho, I don't know. Boise's actually a lovely town, but go somewhere else. Be a little different if you need an office. I'm building my sales office in Sarasota, Florida next year. So that's, so I want to have an office. I want people there because I'm going to have more junior sales reps that I think need a little more coaching and I can deliver more value to them. But that means I need to be present, right? But, my marketing manager in California, our contact person somewhere else. So, and sales can absolutely work that way as well. If you have, depending on the sales role itself, I found generally the more junior the sales rep or the more junior the role, the more proximity kind of matters in selling, at least for a period of time. We have some, Empire Foods, some people online businesses. They do a really interesting thing where they kind of do this. They bring them with them wherever they happen to be for a couple months, and that's kind of the boot camp training. And then they can go home and do whatever they want, which I kind of like that because you're going to set that example of, this is our work ethic. This is how hard we work. This is the process. You can come talk to me when you have a question. It's not Slack. But
yeah, I love that. One final question. So you're hiring your first two sales reps. What level of experience are you hiring? Like, would you recommend junior and then train them? Some experience. What's your thoughts on that?
so, I mean, obviously this is going to depend a little bit, right? So I would, it's going to depend on the role, the market, blah, blah, blah. But yes, if I had to pick one of the other, I'm going to lean more junior than senior for a couple of reasons. One is salty old sales dogs. One of the things I do is I help clients actually do this. I help them plan their kind of team plan and territory plan and comp plan and actually do the recruiting. And inevitably, it doesn't matter what the job is, what the field is. And a client did virtual reality, kind of boost events. Another one does leads for solar companies. There's always those people that show up, the kind of veteran in the industry that shows up and literally says, I know everything about this industry. I know everything about this. I know everything about that. And that is not where you want to be in sales. Like I'm passionate. I'm very knowledgeable. I'm learning all the time. So I would much rather someone who is younger and ambitious and wanted to learn. However, that's harder sometimes too, right? It's harder in that if you aren't skilled up in that, if that's not what you're good at and not what you want to do, then transferring that knowledge can be harder. But again, it's pros and cons. The good news is it's cheaper generally. And if you kind of take my advice and say, okay, there's a hunter role and a farmer role, if I actually keep the hunter role myself and hire 2 farmers because I've got the bandwidth to do that, like that role can be a little more junior because it is more process oriented. It is more kind of client services. Their other experience working retail will actually have some bearing on it, that kind of stuff, right? So.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's always been kind of when I'm transitioning out of doing something, you hire someone who can be trained up to do it. That's kind of been my philosophy. But a few folks have said, like, hire a manager level and get them to take over, and then they can build a team and whatever.
You know what managers are good at? Managing the system they inherited at the other company, right? And so, like, again, this is this myth about someone's going to come into your business and like really create these important parts of your business. And it can happen. It does happen sometimes, right? And again, you want them to make everything better, but you need to have a framework of some sort. It's the same way if you're a developer. If you were a developer and you wrote the first couple of versions of your product, right? Sure, like ideally you're going to find developers better than you. But you're going to have a framework there that they're going to make better. They're not going to come and say, "Hey, I'm going to scrap all of that and do it myself." We're going to change from PHP to Go or whatever, right? They're not going to kind of figure that's not what happens. And unfortunately, in sales, it happens a lot. In sales, what happens is the new boss wants to, there's a new sheriff in town, so everything's going to change, right? The way we do lead gen is going to change. The way we manage accounts is going to change. Everything's going to change because I have to put my impact on this. But what they're really doing is they're just bringing the system they inherited with them because that's what they're comfortable doing. So yeah, you're not anywhere near ready for a sales manager for a while. So again, think about that. If you're the person saying, "Man, I don't like selling very much. I want to get off my plate," I'm telling you, you're going to hate sales management more. Right? It's more expensive because now you've got reps, you've got people you got to manage, and you're still involved in most of the important deals. You still have all the nervousness of whether it's going to close or not, no real control of the pipeline, and you have even less because you're not the one talking to the customer. So you're more detached. So it's harder, but it's absolutely possible. And you can do it quickly. It doesn't have to take long. If you put the time in, you have to focus too, right? So you have to figure out what's important. And if you think of kind of Drucker, right? Peter Drucker, companies do 2 things: create intellectual property and market it. When he says market, he really means sell, right? He means people paying you money for it, right? Marketing, selling, whatever. But that's really all you do. You create something and you get money for it. Like that's what you do in a company, right? Everything else supports those 2 functions. And so those are important functions. And so that you can absolutely, like I would say, hire salespeople before you hire an HR manager, absolutely, right? Or an operations person or whatever. But you need to really think about, again, I think the litmus test said earlier, what's your motivation? Is it because, hey, we're ready to grow? Like, again, like I'm moving back to Florida because I want to hire 6 salespeople at the end of the year because I've got a process now that I know I can scale. So now I'm excited about hiring a sales team. But this is the first sales team I've hired in one of my businesses in a long, long, long time. I've been the chief salesperson in most of my businesses.
That makes sense. Love it. Damian, thank you again for your time. This is awesome. I definitely learned a thing or two. It kind of confirmed a lot of the things, moves I made naturally, but didn't know why, right? It just kind of felt right.
And trial and error. Like, I mean, you figure it out too, right? Like if you're an entrepreneur, like I understand, like if you're an entrepreneur, you are a different cat. You're a different breed, right? Like you see things different. You see problems different. You see a lot of the world differently. You're okay with experimentation and trying things and failing and trying new things. That's not normal. Most people aren't like that. Most people want a 9 to 5. The first question is, what are the benefits like? As an entrepreneur, that's not a question you ever ask, right? And so like that's just, you see the world differently, and because of that you operate differently. And so, and I also say probably if you're a relatively successful entrepreneur, you have a lot of those softer skills too, the EQ and all of that kind of stuff that you've built up over time. You figure it out that a 27-year-old kid probably isn't going to have.
Yeah, makes sense. So folks want to get more in touch, learn about you, hire you, where can they go?
So salesability.com, so it's literally salesability.com, is the sales training business. And obviously we have the lead gen business as well. If you're looking for lead data, at leadfuse.com.
Awesome. Thanks again, dude. It was a pleasure talking to you again.